Okay, let me give you the 411 on the January 6th investigative committee. This is a primarily Democratic committee. Now, some of you may not like what I have to say. Let me first start with the reality that what happened on January 6th was a terrorist attack. It was the use of violence and intimidation in order to impact a political outcome. That is your textbook definition of terrorism. Did Donald Trump animate violence against the United States government? Yes. Did Donald Trump want the process of transferring power to Biden to stop so he could remain president? Yes. Did he engage in a systematic effort to do so? Yes. Let's go to the committee. The committee says they are simply investigating so that the American people can know exactly what's happening. Let's be very clear. This is strategic as well on the side of the Democrats. What's happening with this January 6th committee is political. Yes. It is performative. Yes, that's why it's happening right before the midterm elections. This is not about following all of the evidence. I hoped it was in the beginning, but now I see clearly this is about one thing. I'm going to bring you to that one thing in a moment. Let me ask you this. What is the primary occupation of a politician? When I ask that question, here's what I mean. What do they occupy their time on? They occupy their time on how to stay in power. The ultimate goal of a politician, not a public servant, but a politician, is to get reelected. That is it. They want to hold power. Now look at what's happening with the January 6th committee. Let's go to Ginni Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas. Their investigation and the investigation of investigative journalists have uncovered multiple text messages, emails showing that Ginni Thomas was involved in a coordinated effort to overthrow democracy, to shred the Constitution. Her husband, a United States Supreme Court justice, his votes 100% align with her activism. Even when his vote disagrees with other conservatives on the bench, it always agrees with Ginni Thomas. The January 6th committee, they have now invited Ginni Thomas to testify to give clarification to her extreme involvement in the attempted coup of the United States government. It is interesting that it took this long and this much for them to give her an invite. Remember, they did not give her a subpoena, and they could have. They did not put her officially under investigation with the committee, and they should have. So they tried to avoid this part. The January 6th committee, they decided not to investigate her, even though she was popping up in their investigation all over the place. They don't want to touch her. She does not have any special immunity. There's no law barring them from investigating her, having her sit under a subpoena. Let's go to Mike Pence. Mike Pence, who is at the center of this controversy. Mike Pence, who was approached about this before it even happened. Mike Pence, who called Dan Quayle and said, "Hey, Dan, can I overthrow the government?" And Dan Quayle said, "You can't. You don't have an option here." Mike Pence says, "You don't know the kind of pressure that I'm under, Dan." Dan says, "No, the Constitution does not give you the authority to not certify the electors. You cannot do this." Mike Pence wanted to, but he was counseled not to. Why is he not part of this investigation? Why have they sent a letter rather than a subpoena? Why send a request when you can send a demand? Let me tell you why. The people on this committee, they're not dumb. Sometimes they can be idiots, but they're not dumb. These are bright people typically. In other words, they're not sitting around saying, "Well, we didn't think about Ginni Thomas. We didn't think about Mike Pence." Of course they thought about Ginni Thomas. Of course they thought about Mike Pence. They thought about them a lot. And they made a conscious decision to not include them in their investigation, to not bring them under oath, to not investigate their phone calls, their emails, their text messages. And there's a reason. You see, Ginni Thomas represents your conduit to the U.S. Supreme Court. Because I guarantee you, if they actually investigate Ginni Thomas, they will find clear evidence between Ginni Thomas and Clarence Thomas, and they are talking about cases in front of him. They don't want that. Second, Mike Pence is your conduit to Donald Trump, to the presidency, to the institution. You see, Democrats in particular still think there's something very sacred about the office. Republicans, they have abandoned sacredness of a political position a long time ago. And if there was anything left, Donald Trump took that completely out. Now I'm arguing the progressive position here, that you have to follow the evidence wherever the evidence takes you. Now here's the dynamic that's chilling. What if the evidence they would uncover by investigating Ginni Thomas and Mike Pence is so damning, it's so extreme, that no one in this country would doubt that they tried to illegally take an entire nation? What if that happens? What if that's what they want to avoid? Here's what I think is going down. I think they know that if Ginni Thomas is fully investigated, if she testifies truthfully, that if Mike Pence is fully investigated, and if he testifies truthfully, that it will then be so conclusive that criminal charges must be applied against Donald Trump, which means the current Department of Justice would be in the political pickle of having to indict a former United States president. Remember, the Constitution does not allow, does not give, does not provide any special protections to a former U.S. president. He's a citizen just like you and I. He's indictable, okay? This comes down to Biden being an institutionalist, to his Department of Justice wanting to uphold the sanctity of the institution of the presidency. They don't want to be put in the position of actually having to indict a former U.S. president. And either Ginni Thomas or Mike Pence, or maybe a combination of them both, will surely land them to that conclusion. And that's why they do not want them to testify. Now, here's the other part. It doesn't mean it can't happen. That's why it's up at this point to progressives in the Democratic Party who actually care about following all of the evidence to its natural conclusion rather than protecting institutions here and there and giving some people immunity that don't deserve it whatsoever. So those who are conscious enough of the political game that's being played must push the agenda. Contact your congressional leader. Pose the question. I had a great conversation with Congressman Ro Khanna out of California just a couple of days ago. And I said, listen, this doesn't make sense. And he agreed. Ginni Thomas should be investigated. He agreed that the committee has decided to bypass certain people who obviously were engaged in criminal activity. Food for thought. At some point, the truth has to come out.